March Madness is upon us, and that means Bet On It is back. Kelly Stewart, Kelly in Vegas, joined by Joe Raineri, at Joe Raineri, of course, on X, and Marco D'Angelo. I forget his social media handle because it doesn't really matter. He never tweets anything. Marco, welcome in. I love to give you grief. It would not be Bet On It if we were not here in between you or on both sides of you, giving you absolute and utter hell. But you have some winners for us. Thursday games, Friday games. Joe, we know you got a couple underdogs in your back pocket. We're talking all things situations, overreactions, and of course, joined by Ralph Michaels for some TNA. Marco, before we get started, tell me how to attack Thursday and Friday, round one, round two.
Well, Kelly, obviously you've got most of the teams coming in here. A lot of them are coming off a loss. Some are coming off a win. But we got to look at some of those teams that were surprise winners. Obviously, we had some major upsets. Teams that we didn't see crash in the dance party did, and what ended up happening, stealing some bids, and some people got left on the sidelines. And I'm scratching my head on a couple of the teams that got left out versus a couple of the teams that did get in with at-large bids. But yes, you had unprecedented, and we're going to talk about that game a little bit later too. NC State, 5 games in 5 days, and they danced their way in to March Madness. So will they be flat? Will they ride the momentum? We'll talk about that later. It's a fun time. Knock on wood, Kelly, I have been rolling in basketball for 2 years, both college and NBA. Had a great conference tournament week. We hit 70%, going 14-6 last week. And let's see if we can keep it going this week.
Absolutely. 5 bids were stolen. So much so that Oklahoma and a couple other teams were so mad they even opted out of the NIT. Joe, we're going to talk about some of those teams that maybe are a little overseeded, a little underseeded as well. How are you going to approach this tournament?
I'm going to start by fading every Mountain West team known to mankind, and it's going to start tonight.
Strategy the last 9 years. Last 9 years. I will never forget working for the RJ.
Never.
And I said, I'm taking under 3.5 wins. And then not a single Mountain West team won in round one. And everybody looked at me like I was crazy. They're not any good. But starting tonight, come on, Joe. I think we're a little early to be fading the Mountain West.
They're all gone. Every one of them, they're overrepresented in the tournament, and they can thank teams like NC State and a few others that they're in here. But I do think I always like this time, the first couple of days, because there's a lot of recency bias in the market. You know, Auburn's going to win everything right now, of course, because of how great they were, right? And then you've got out of sight, out of mind, right? You've got teams like St. Mary's, who a lot of people don't even remember if they were good or not good. Why? Because, well, they beat Gonzaga and finished up their conference tournament way before anything that we've seen this past weekend. So you got to be careful coming out of a year in which so many underdogs were represented in the Elite Eight and the Final Four, and, of course, even in the championship. That doesn't happen every year, but something tells me come Thursday and Friday, the market, there are going to be an awful lot of public bettors looking for those upsets across the board, but I'd be careful.
Joe, I'm looking for upsets too, but boy, does it look chalky this year. Last year, the 5 swept the board. They did not get upset by the 12s, but we did see another 16 seed get upset. You mentioned some of those teams that are kind of flying under the radar. That's how I'm looking at the tournament as well. Here's 2 that are strikingly odd, and we've seen some interesting line movement so far. Thursday tournament previews underway, noon. Well, 12:15 Eastern, I lied. Michigan State gets back in it because Tom Izzo is Tom Izzo. I did not think they deserved to be in. Now 1-point favorites over Mississippi State, 130.5, Marco. Let me tell you about Mississippi State. This is what I have on my notes. Turnovers, bad, 3-point defense. That is what I put down because I have bet on this team more than any other SEC team this year. I went 0-4 in January and early February with this team. They finally got a couple of wins for me late in the season, but they were just so underwhelming. And now here's a Sparty team that I don't think deserves to get in. I'm not getting to the window with this game, but help me break this one down.
Well, it sounds like your Mississippi State was my South Carolina this year because that team was my nemesis, and we'll be talking about them in a bit. But you look at this one, and Kelly, I disagree with you on the fact with Michigan State not deserving to be here. And this is typical Tom Izzo. They don't have the gaudy win-loss record every year. Then people say, do they really deserve to be in here? You know why they don't have that gaudy win-loss record? Because he doesn't schedule cupcakes in November, in early December. Look at who Michigan State played early on. They played Duke, Arizona, and Baylor, all on the road. That gets your team ready for tournament play. You know, you don't get the wins early on, but you're building your team in building them to be a good team come tournament time. Now, this is one of those classic 8-9 seeds that looks like a coin flip. The point spread tells you it's a coin flip. And I'm going to look at this one, and people are going to have the natural gravitation to go to the SEC over the Big Ten. They're both Power 5 conferences, but let's face it, the SEC is always the glamour conference, whether it's football or basketball. Big Ten in basketball generally gets a knock because they fall on their face, and that's usually because Purdue stubs their toe somewhere along the line, always being highly ranked. But I am going to take Michigan State in this one. I think they will dictate the pace. They've got the nation's 27th ranked scoring defense. And Michigan State, this is a team that generally bounces back off of a loss. The last 2 seasons, they're 17-7 coming off a loss. And if that loss was by 6 points or less, Kelly, that stat goes to a subset of 9-2 against the spread. Give me the better coach team. Give me the disciplined team. Give me that ugly looking team. I'll take Michigan State to advance to the next round.
There's a prop bet out there. It's SEC teams under 5.5 wins. It's a little juice towards the under. I was thinking about taking it. There's a couple of coin flip games I wasn't sure about. Joe, are you riding with Izzo in March?
These two teams suck. I mean, give me a break. I mean, honestly, let's be realistic here.
On the schedule. Why are we talking about this game?
I don't even know. This blows. Marco, listen, 19-14. I don't care who you could have played the New York Knicks. I don't care. The fact that Izzo is here is simple. It's because it's Izzo and it's March and they make money. It's ridiculous. And Mississippi State, listen, I give them credit. They beat Tennessee not once in the SEC tournament, but they beat them twice over this year. But again, these are two teams that are so inconsistent. Defense is the name of the game for both of these teams, right? I mean, Izzo and company, yes, between Hoggart, Malik Hall, Atkins, they've got all guys that we've heard of because they've been there for 100 years, but they have been one of the most inconsistent teams, a team you can't rely on throughout the year. Michigan, listen, Mississippi State came on nice towards the end. It's the only reason they're there, plus those couple of wins in the SEC tournament. But I think when I look at this and I put these two teams together, the first thing I thought wasn't side, it was total. I'm going under. I don't see how we're getting a whole lot of points in this game. It feels like a rock fight. It's exactly how these two teams want to win. Michigan State is better from 3 than Mississippi State, but the Bulldogs also happen to be one of the best 3-point perimeter defenses in the country. It's under or nothing for me in this one.
All right. Well, I'm going to be staying off this one, and I'm going to be betting this next one, Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, Oregon versus South Carolina. South Carolina, 1.5-point favorite, total 132.5, currently on the WagerTalk odds screen. Joe, this actually is going to be my best bet for the tournament. But I'm curious to hear what you have to say about the Red Hot Ducks versus the South Carolina Gamecocks, one of the best ATS teams this year in college basketball.
Well, Marco was talking about it, right? South Carolina was that nemesis for him this year, right? Every time you tried to bet against them, it's they ended up winning a game. Well, Dana Altman and Oregon were my nemesis because every time I bet on them to start the season, they sucked. They didn't win a damn game. I lost every game I bet on them. I'm going, what is going on with Dana Altman and this Oregon team? They got this kid, Dante, who's going to be a top 3 or 4 pick in the NBA draft. The kid is an absolute monster. And I'm going, and when? When are they going to put it together? Well, the answer was, yeah, right there in the Pac-12 tournament there. I mean, what an amazing game against Arizona. Slowed them down, made it impossible after they just lost a game to Arizona in which Arizona dropped 100 points just the week prior. So I love teams that eventually figured out and start playing some of their best basketball towards the end of the regular season into the conference tournaments here. I think South Carolina is a team that might have just overperformed a tad here because I don't think anybody saw them as one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the SEC, much less being a 6 seed here. I'd be very careful looking to back not back Oregon here with where they're playing. Plus, I mean, as great as Lamont Paris has been here, and he's done a great job getting these kids to believe, just got a huge I believe a contract extension as well. So, I mean, kudos. Been a fantastic year. But my money will always be on Dana Altman in these spots in the tournament with a team that believes they can win now. And this is the Oregon team that I thought we were going to get this year. Took them a little while to get there, but I'm glad they're finally here because I do think as an 11 seed, this could be one of those spots where you want to look at a lower seed beating a higher seed.
Ooh, all right. Well, we're going to find out what I like in this one. But first, we got to ask Marco D'Angelo, considering he said he had a bad read on South Carolina. Marco, what do you mean by that? You just, whether you're on or against, kind of just couldn't get this team figured out?
Well, it was a situation where, Kelly, I do a lot of stuff where I look at the lines and I say, what are they trying to do here with this line? And when the lines were high, and it was one of those ones where they're high, they're ranked in the top 25 and they're on the road and they're getting points. I'm stepping in front of them and they just kept covering and covering. Then they get a short number. I jump on them and they fall flat on their face. So which streak is going to stop here? Joe's with Oregon or me with South Carolina? So I don't know which way you're going, Kelly, but I'm on South Carolina here. I am going to buy them because you know what? I just think that the Pac-12 was absolute dog shit this year, okay? Yeah, Arizona won, and Arizona crushed them just the week before when they played Oregon. And it was a boat race game. They went up and down the floor, as Joe said. Oregon couldn't stop Arizona in that game. And then they turn around in the conference tournament, and it's a complete role reversal. It's a slow-down game. Was Arizona fat and sassy? Possible. Did Arizona not really give, a rat's you-know-what? Because they were locked. I don't think they ever were going to get a shot at the number 1 seed simply because the Pac-12 was weak this year. I think they were locked into the number 2 seed, and I don't think they really cared. And after that, anybody else you beat in the Pac-12, that just didn't impress me at all. To get to the championship and cut down the nets, they beat a UCLA team that couldn't get out of their own way this year, and Colorado was all over the place. I'll go with the team out of the tougher conference, the SEC. South Carolina, you got one last chance to stick it to me. I'm riding with you this time. I'm taking South Carolina at a very short number here. I'll take them. And really, Oregon, they weren't going to be in – I didn't think they were going to be dancing if they didn't win the Pac-12. So let's see if they have a little bit of a letdown as well.
All right, March Madness special right now on WagerTalk.com. $149. Use coupon code BOI149. That is our March Madness special. $149 through the finals on, what is that? April 9th, I believe, is the national championship game. One more, 8th. Thank you. 8th, Marco. That would be a Monday night. Don't have my calendar on me. I can't even imagine getting to that point right now. Thursday, 9:40 Eastern, late night special. NC State +5 versus Texas Tech. 145 is the total right now, on the Wager Talk odds screen. Marco, I'm going to kick it right back to you. 5 games in 5 days, 70-1 to win the ACC championship. I already laid it with Tech. If you follow me on Pickett, you guys know that I laid 5.5. Thought this one would get bet the other way, but of course not. NC State is going to be the underdog special, I have a feeling, for round number 1.
Pickett, was that just a shot at me with Kenny?
No. Pickett is the new app. It's great. Here you go, Marco. Here's a free promo for Pickett. I know the owner. He said, Kelly, how come you don't use Pickett? I said, why would I use Pickett? I've got an Excel spreadsheet. And he goes, this one connects to your betting account and tracks all of your wins and losses. So you don't have to do any of the work. It's wonderful. And so now I'm posting all my plays on Pickett first. So there. So you know that I'm getting the best of the number for all of you jerks in the comment. Where'd you get 3? Where'd you get 1.5? Well, I got it on Monday or Tuesday. That's where I got it. And now I have somebody that can prove that for me. So Marco D'Angelo, tell me why I'm crazy for taking a bad number here with Tech.
Kelly, I agree with you here. I can't back Tech after the 5 games in 5 days, and everybody's going to look at it. And why not? They're going to say, hey, if you can beat Duke, you can beat North Carolina, and you're getting double digits in those games, and you did it against North Carolina on the 5th day, 5 games in 5 days. Why can't you beat Texas Tech with rest? Well, you know what? They were running on adrenaline, okay? And it was the only way in. And I'm not going to say any conspiracy theories, but, the more teams you get into the tournament, the more money it is for the conference. And we know North Carolina had their name locked on the number 1 seed, no matter what was going to happen in that championship game. So not saying conspiracy theory, but I'm not saying that's not a possibility as well. And let's face it, if you're a tired team, what happens? You're short on your jump shots and you don't play good defense. Well, you better do that because Texas Tech's going to come to play. They're going to be in an angry mood because they're coming off only scoring 59 points in their last game. Well, that should be no surprise. Who did they play in that last game, Kelly? They played Houston, the best defense in the country. I might throw out St. Mary's is a close second, and I got to see them in person here in Vegas last week. But Houston is just a tenacious defense. They make you work for every shot. They're going to play this NC State team and look at this defense, and they're going to think they're shooting the ball in the ocean compared to what they faced against Houston. I'm going to go with Texas Tech. I am going to lay the number with it. I don't think it's enough. I know we like to take those darling dogs, but this isn't one of those spots. If they get the job done here, I'll probably be against NC State in the next one. I don't think this team can survive twice, but they could lose and cover, and that would really irk me. But I'm going to go ahead and lay it with Texas Tech. Here's a little stat for Texas Tech. After a game where they went over the total, last 3 seasons, they're 17-37 against the spread in the next game. Let's go ahead and take Tech. Lay the points.
Joe Raineri, top to bottom, what is the best conference in college basketball?
Oh, it's the Big 12. Stop. But you knew I was going to say that.
Listen, I don't want to get called a homer. I just had to ask. So we spoke about you're fading the Mountain West. I said that that's a bet of mine that has been very profitable since I started betting college basketball in like 2009. And then now I'm looking at this Big 12 grouping as a whole. And if you look on KenPom, if you look on home court advantages, we know that it's the Big 12, but these are neutral site games. Do you think that maybe the Big 12 is not getting enough love in some of these numbers? As Marco said, SEC always gets love here. I feel like this is really short. I thought this number was headed to 6.5.
Yeah, and this one's in Pittsburgh, right? So, I mean, they had to go from Raleigh to Pittsburgh here, which isn't much for North Carolina State here. And yeah, when it comes to conferences, Cal, I'm with you. I mean, there's levels to this. I will look to back an ACC team over any Mountain West team, and I will look to back a Pac-12 team over a Big 12 team over any sort of ACC team. And that's just the way it is here. I think the quality of the competition and what we have seen them do, and Texas Tech, by the way, playing in a better conference, is a top 50 team in adjusted defensive efficiency. They're also a top 25 team in adjusted offensive efficiency. So they delivered this year in what I think is a much different conference. While North Carolina State got hot at the right time, they had some things go their way. Going into that tournament, I think they had lost 7 of their last 9 games. This was another one of these teams like Oregon where they had to run the table or they weren't going to even sniff maybe the NIT. But yet here they are. So they don't turn the ball over a lot here, but I love what McCaslin has done with Texas Tech this year. Coming from North Texas, taking a Texas Tech job and a team that was barely 500 to bring them where they are here today. He's got these kids believing. I just think I have the better team, the more proven team in a matchup here that should be fun, but ultimately I'd much rather be holding a ticket on Texas Tech in the Big 12 than North Carolina State, who might still be celebrating the fact they beat North Carolina for the championship. So my money would only be on Texas Tech in this one.
Yeah, I bet this one. This is the first game that I bet on Sunday night when the Lions came out. Here's a quick stat that I had to look up. I couldn't find earlier. Mountain West as 8 seeds or worse in the Big Dance since 2003, 3-32 straight up, 5-28-2 against the spread. Woof. You know what that woof means? It's time to bring in Ralph Michaels because he's got way more TNA for us. I know he's been waiting in the wings so patiently. He's coming to Florida next week. I can't wait to hang out and have some margaritas on the beach, Ralph. But first, we got to get through March Madness. We got to have some TNA. We need some charts as well as some actionable info. Tell me what you got.
You're muted, Ralph.
I think Ralph is a little
Guys,
muted.
I had myself on
is.
mute. I don't want to be swearing while they're talking. Kelly and Joe, just to talk about the Mountain West, I've got one more number for you. Kelly, you gave a great number, 8 seeds and worse. But if you look at the Mountain West team since 2012, San Diego State is 9-7 straight up in ATS. The other teams in the Mountain West besides San Diego State have failed to cover 10 straight games, and they're 4-18 against the spread. So, Joe, I totally agree with your comment. Let's just leave San Diego State out of the mix when you're talking about fading those Mountain West teams.
That's fair. I'd also like to leave Utah State out because I did bet them on the money line. I think they may be able to spring an upset over said Big 12 team TCU, but we'll get to that just a little bit later on. All right, Ralph's got some charts for us. Exciting stuff. As always, Ralph, let's get to this first one here and break it down in plain English for me because sometimes these get a little complex.
Well, Kelly, let's start with this. Bet On It fans have to be very thankful that you are the host on this show because after the show, I get a text from Kelly. You are turning this into a guide, right? So I have all the numbers and I don't have to write all the damn numbers down. So yes, I will post all the charts and the TNA plus more TNA that I have in a PDF that'll be up and available on my homepage at WagerTalk tomorrow. First chart is just this. People ask all the time, March Madness, what are there more favorites or are there more dogs? So I wanted to go round by round. The top chart you see in the green are round by round, just favorites. So if you're a favorite in the game, it gets graded. So take a look at the left-hand side of the chart. Round 1 since 2015, favorites have gone 48%. Dan, if we could get the other chart, the longer one, the first one that has the 2022 to 2015. There we go. Perfect. So you look on the left-hand side of the top. Round 1 favorites since 2015 have hit 48%. Round 2 favorites, 48%. Round 3 favorites, 49%. Round 4 favorites, 25%. And you see the year-by-year breakdown on those. Not going to blindly say play dogs, but when underdogs have cashed to the tune of over 53%, it's something that you have to put in the mix. And then the bottom in the blue, Kelly, are over-under records by the round. March Madness games in round 1, 48.6% to the over. Round 2, 49.5%. Round 3 and round 4, take a look at those numbers. Round 3, going back to 2015, 23 overs and 33 unders. That is 58.9% to the under. And round 4, 11 overs and 17 unders. So that works out to over 60% to the under. So chart 1, just basically round by round favorites, round by round totals collectively, and each of the previous seasons through 2015.
You can always get Ralph's charts as well as his guides on his page on wagertalk.buzz/RM. Ralph, what do you have over at WagerTalk for this March Madness?
Well, I have a 5% already loaded for Thursday. I have one play for tonight, a 4% play, and a 2% play in college basketball. I just want to quickly mention that I have a great special. It's available to anyone who is interested. Listen, number one in March profit 2 of the last 3 years. NBA a great run, NHL a great run. Save $120 off a 30-day all-access package. Rest of college basketball, NBA, and NHL. Use the code MMRALPH for March Madness Ralph, and you pay only $179, under $6 a day.
All right, Ralph, we got some more TNA to break down. A couple more charts. Let's finish those off real quick.
Charts number 2, Kelly, are the seedings. We talk about 1 seeds. We talk about 3 seeds. And we know seeding isn't consistent. It depends on what the committee does each year. But I did want to break down round 1 and round 2 by seedings. Could take a look and see in round 1, number 1 seeds have only gone 8 and 12 against the spread, 40%. Number 2 seeds and number 3 seeds have gone 55 and 60%. So it's just a breakdown for you to take a deeper dive. Do take a look at the very bottom of that left-hand chart. In round 1, did you know 16 seeds have actually gone 12 and 8, 60%? And take a look on the bottom. In round 2, if you are a 15 seed or a 16 seed, you have actually gone 5 and 0 against the spread going back to 2017. So chart number 2, just blindly breaking down round 1 and round 2 by seeds, and then as by a favorite and as a dog. And the third chart, Kelly, is going to be the biggest upset since 2000. Biggest upset since 2012. So I want you to know, I went to the database and took a look. There have been 162 double-digit dogs since 2012. 14 of them have pulled the outright upset. You see on the very top, Purdue, of course, is on the top. They lost as a 23.5-point favorite last year. Virginia lost as a 20.5-point favorite against UMBC. Those are the only two dogs of 20 points or more that have pulled the upset. But I found it interesting. Double-digit dogs have gone 54.4% since 2012. And while they're only 14 and 148 straight up, they only win 8.6% of the time. The average line of these double-digit dogs is plus 16. That translates to about plus 1,100 on the money line. So if you actually bet every double-digit March Madness dog since 2012 on the money line, you've showed a very slight profit. Slight profit. So I just want to mention that. So don't go crazy. This is just sort of bringing up those huge upsets that we all remember that get blasted all over the news. And again, this chart and one more chart will be in the guide for free on my homepage.
All right, we're going to get to the Friday games here. But first, Ralph, give me some of the actionable info, a little rapid fire here for the next 2. Well, technically, can we use some of these for rounds 2 and 3?
Kelly, I have one for round 2. The rest are for all March Madness.
Perfect.
And I will tell you this. Since we're likely not going to have a show for the Sweet 16, I will repost a whole nother guide for Sweet 16 data. So check my page next week as well for that. So first situation, rested teams versus non-rested teams. Marco talked about teams playing late in the second week. All the power conferences playing, some finishing Saturday, some finishing Sunday. So if you look at round 1 since 2012, when one team has rest of less than 7 days and one team has rest of 10 or more days, that basically breaks down the division from the first week to the second week. Kelly, the teams with less rest are only 34.9%. So I'm going to mention those real quick. This week, the less rested teams, Illinois, Connecticut, Houston, Wisconsin, and Washington State. Again, the teams with more rest in round one, at least 3 days more rest, have covered 65.1% of the time. Situation two, how do teams do off back-to-back losses? Obviously, this has to be the regular season matchups, or you wouldn't be playing in the NCAA tournament. So teams that lost their last 2 regular season games, those teams like Tennessee, Clemson, and Duke have gone 25-17, 59.5%. And if they lost their last game as a favorite, like Tennessee, Clemson, and Duke, they have actually covered 64.3%. So as Marco mentioned, perhaps losing early, getting a few extra days of rest has clearly helped those teams. Again, back-to-back losses with your last as a favorite, you've covered 63%. How about one total spot? We've talked often about lowest totals are low for a reason, high totals are high for a reason, and for the most part, it makes sense to look at the under on the low totals and the over on the high totals. Well, when I looked at totals of 120 or less since 2000, even 13 of them, Kelly, but they have gone 9 overs and 3 unders, so 75% to the under. When we've had high totals of 157 or more, they've gone 12 overs and 20 unders, so 62.5% to the under. So in this case, for March Madness, low totals have gone over the total, high totals have gone under. And I think the reason of that is in conference play, you have so much familiarity that those low totals, you're used to playing that defense. The high totals, you're flying out the door and you know the pace. But in March Madness, again, that does not hold true. And the last one, Kel, is one which may be applicable to this Thursday, Friday games, or you can use the same system later. But it is NCAA tournament games that you have an ATS streak of at least 2+ wins. This is for Sweet 16 only, or if you played the play-in game and won round one. Blindly, if you covered your last 2 games, you have gone 64-41, 61% against the spread. So not a wow number, but when you've exceeded the expectations, won back-to-back games in the tournament, and covered those games, you have gone 61% against the spread since 2016.
All right, Ralph. I know this wasn't part of the show, but we're live, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have a best bet for the show for round one?
Well, this. I like Drake. And while Washington State is a team with more rest than Drake, when you're a dog in that situation, it's only happened 9 times. The dog, the team with the less rest, the power conference team, has actually only gone 3-7 against the spread, 30%. I think Drake is strong enough. I think the Missouri Valley is a good enough conference to give them enough competitive power. And in Washington State, while they were the number 2 seed in the Pac-12, they were a team that is not accustomed to being here. It takes a lot of preparation. Why does Izzo get his teams ready to play? Everything plans for March. Kyle Smith has been at Washington State a long time, but I don't think his team now knows what to do in this reset in March Madness. I'm going to fade the Pac-12. That should make Marco smile, and I am going to back Drake as my best bet for this WagerTalk Bet on It March Madness segment.
I love it. Guess who also laid it with Drake very early on? That would be your girl. I cannot remember if it was my buddy Clint, my buddy Joey, somebody in that gambling group chat that is a complete and utter disarray. Said, Kelly, bet Drake, pick 'em. I think I laid 1 the next day. I had to think on it, sleep overnight. So, of course, I didn't get the best of the number. Let's get right into these Friday games. Quick promotion here. Right now, we have a March Madness special over WagerTalk. $149 if you use coupon code BOI149. Marco D'Angelo, New Mexico. We talked about fading these Mountain West teams. I think this might be the one that I don't want to fade. Friday, 3:10 Eastern, 2-point favorite versus Clemson, total 151.5. You know, I love when the better seating is catching points. To me, it just seems like something's off here. Smells a little fishy. You know how Ariel does that fish emoji whenever something seems off here? Should I be laying it with New Mexico, even though I'm really down on the Mountain West this year?
Yeah, Kelly, this smells of a trap game. And I'll be honest with you, when I first started to dig into this game, I thought full well I'm going to be on New Mexico. They were very good to me in the Mountain West Conference tournament. We had a great Mountain West tournament, so going to be sad to see all these teams go by the wayside in the early round of the big dance. And this is the one team that people do like because, let's face it, they rolled down the stretch. They won 5 of their last 6 games. Their only loss was a 2-point loss to Utah State, who was the best team in the Mountain West from start to finish until they stubbed their toe in the Mountain West Conference tournament. All that said, throw in the seedings. And I always say it, I'm generally going to side with the people in Las Vegas that do this for a living, that actually set the lines, bet the games, rather than a bunch of guys sitting around in a room talking about what they saw and putting rankings up. I do that whether it be football pools, whether it be basketball pools, the rankings. I'm always going to side with the Vegas bookmakers. But this is going to be the one time I'm going to make an exception, Kelly, and I'll ride the wave of letting the Mountain West crash and burn because Clemson is that team that I don't understand how the hell they got a bid into the tournament. So why do I want them? Well, sometimes that team that gets called out for not deserving to be here really gets a chip on their shoulder and they come to play. Now, if everybody says you shouldn't be here and you're here, and then you lose to a Mountain West team, does it get any worse than that? It doesn't. I think you're going to see Clemson come to play. And honestly, they don't deserve to be here. I would have put St. John's in, Indiana State in, or I would have put in my own Pitt Panthers above Clemson in this tournament. But they're here, so there's nothing that we can do about it. We'll go ahead and take it. I'm going to ride with them. Dogs are barking, if you hear my dog in the background. So he likes to play. We're going with Clemson here. Let's go ahead and take them as our play here. That's Clemson plus the points here. Mild upset. Can you really call somebody beating a Mountain West Conference team outright an upset? Is that something?
Yeah. I mean, it technically would be a mild upset. The joys of doing a live show, though, dogs barking. I voted already in our Slack channel. We're doing every bet on it live from now on. It's just way better content. And then now nobody can edit out all my mean remarks to Marco. Joe Raineri. Look, Clemson losing back-to-back games as a favorite apparently makes them a play-on situation here. I just don't know. I think that there's a couple of Mountain West teams, and the reason why I did not bet that under just yet, as I mentioned, I like Utah State. I also like New Mexico to get a win here. And while I agree, the Mountain West has not been great, I think there's a couple of asterisks, right? And Ralph told us the only asterisk is San Diego State. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that makes sense, actually, with San Diego State there. Obviously, they've had a couple of pretty good back-to-back seasons here now. I still, though, I'm doing it for one. I'm doing it for all here. And I am all aboard the Fade the Mountain West train. Buckle up here, people. And I think it happens once again here to New Mexico, who quite honestly is far... A lot of people all over the New Mexico train now, given the fact that, just a week and a half ago, They have been in do or die situations here because they lost a bunch of games this year that they shouldn't have. And I'll tell you, I'll just go to the matchup with this. I think PJ Hall could very well be one of the best players on the team. We have a New Mexico on the court here for Clemson. New Mexico is a team that loves to get to the rim, Cal. They're not a big three-point shooting team, but they are a great team when it comes to getting inside the paint and putting the ball up there in and around the rim. Well, the problem is Clemson is 10th in field goal percentage defense at the rim here this year. It's exactly what they prevent better than anybody that New Mexico has faced in the Mountain West. You also have a top 20 team in Clemson as far as experience goes. In fact, I think Ken Pom had him rated somewhere in the 20s for statistically wise bringing back the most experience. And that showed, Cal, because they have all their big wins for Clemson came on the road this year. And I think that speaks to how much experience they do have here. Again, I said it, ACC over Mountain West, just about anybody over Mountain West. Yes, we can question Clemson getting there, but I just think this is a matchup that favors Clemson style-wise, and I think the experience will come through here for Clemson, and I'll take the team with what I think is going to be the best player on the court in PJ Hall. I'll take Clemson and whatever points you want to give me here.
All right, we are head-to-head. Friday, 6:50 Eastern, Texas A&M, 1.5-point dogs versus Nebraska, 147.5 right now on the WagerTalk odds screen. Joe, I'm going to kick it back to you. Here's a Nebraska team that beat K-State before conference play, tied up at half, had a monster second half, and kind of got their way with an Illinois team here late. I'm trying to figure them out, though. It's not that they've been wildly inconsistent. It's just that almost like they've been flying under the radar. Then A&M kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, losing as short favorites a couple of times at home in games where I thought they should have won. I'm not going to get to the window, but I need a little bit more synopsis on why Nebraska is a 1-point favorite here.
Yeah, so, first of all, kudos to Texas A&M and Buzz Williams, who, by the way, has one of the worst records in when it comes to tournament time. Just throwing that out there for you. But A&M, it's funny. Buzz Williams' teams have always been about rebounding, playing defense, making the extra pass, slowing it down, and I love the fact that Buzz Williams realized about a little over a month ago, Kel, down the stretch that, well, this ain't going to work. We're not going to win any games in the SEC if we continue to try to play that. So when you have a stud guard like Wade Taylor, and he is one of the most experienced guards in the country, and he's also one of the most prolific scorers in the country, well, then what did you do? Well, then you go, you know what, the hell with that. Yes, we want to get back and play defense. Yes, we want to get some rebounds. But ultimately, he took the handcuffs off him and let him go. And as you can tell, the scoring for Texas A&M down the stretch was not what we were used to seeing. They let it fly, especially Wade Taylor, especially from three. So they are now playing much more of a game that Fred Hoiberg in Nebraska likes to play, which is going to be definitely up-tempo, which is going to be all about chucking it up, getting the threes here. And that's exactly why I'm looking at the total in this game, 147.5. But with the adjustments A&M has made down the stretch, we know Hoiberg in Nebraska are going to want to get out there. They're going to want to go, 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 go. They will. And Texas A&M shooting a high percentage of threes now this year. By all means, I think this thing lands in the 150s. I don't think this is going to be a rock fight in any way, shape, or form. I definitely think this is going to be a fun one, but do not look for Texas A&M to be that old, slow rock fight. Let's slow it down. Let's wait until there's 1 second left. No. They're going to chuck up some threes, and this one could be one of the higher scoring games on Friday.
Chucking up threes. That is interesting. I am not a big totals better, as everybody knows, but that one, Kind of got my mind wandering. Friday, 9:55 Eastern, late night special. Utah State, as I mentioned, I played them on the money line, 3-point underdog to TCU, 150.5 here. Joe, here was kind of my synopsis. I know we mentioned that we're a little down on the conference from the Mountain West, and that is for good reason. But here's a Utah State team that I thought kind of has an asterisk next to them, right? Outside of that weird loss in the Mountain West conference game to San Diego State and a couple of road losses in conference, this team has been so great. They defend the three ball really well. They get the buckets in the paint. The only thing that frustrates me, and I'm deathly afraid of this is how I'm going to lose this money line, is their free throw shooting. And I'm like, if this comes down, this looks like a coin flip game. I made this game TCU -1.5. And if it comes down to free throws, I am going to be in my couch in the fetal position screaming, make your bleeping free throws. So I need to know, you said you're fading them all. Are you laying it with TCU here?
You know, nothing warms my heart more, Kelly, than the fact that you completely blew past Marco and his Nebraska pick, so you and I could talk about this game.
Well, it's a live show. And it's
that's what
happen.
I mean. I'm all for the live show. I'm all for the live show here. You have no idea.
Well, in fairness, I have to start
happy
Kelly and Murray in 14 minutes, so we're kind of on a time crunch. If John Murray calls me one more time during the middle of the show.
Go ahead, Marco. It's all yours, man. I will have an answer for that, Cal. I'm not sure we're all going to be on the same page with this, but go ahead, Marco. What's your Nebraska play?
Yeah, well, since Kelly's got a bus to catch or something here, I'll just tell you, I'm on Nebraska. I'm sorry. I like Nebraska here with this one. And Joe, I agree with you that Texas A&M wants to go up tempo. But, you know, Nebraska has held 6 of the last 9 opponents to 39% or less shooting. They're 9th in defensive shooting percentage, allowing just 39% on the season, which tells me Texas A&M, after the last 2 games where they went up and down the floor playing Kentucky and Florida, they're not going to have it as easy. And I think it's going to frustrate them a little bit. And I'm going to take this Nebraska team. I like them. I think they're flying under the radar this year. And this is a team that when Vegas has installed them as a favorite this season, they're 15-4 against the spread. So that's all I got, Kelly. I'll just sit back and just shut up now. And you guys can.
All right, this game just meant so little to me that it also meant that I didn't care about your opinion on it. That being said, Marco, would you like to tell me about the Horned Frogs versus the Aggies?
Oh, God, I can't.
I don't know. I might do like all the teams that got snubbed. I might just take my ball and go home. I don't want to play anymore. We're going to go ahead and look at this last one. TCU and Utah State. Hey, you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's fade another Mountain West Conference team. We're going to go ahead and fade Utah State here. Yeah, it's been a nice story for them, and it's been a real surprise. Kelly, if you realize this team didn't bring back a single starter from last year's team, a team that had a very good season last year as well. So they started from scratch, and they got the job done. I am impressed with what they accomplished, but they took an early exit out of the tournament, the conference tournament, which, again, as we said, can be a good or a bad thing. I just like TCU. This is a team, Jamie Dixon, always been a fan of his when he was here as head coach at Pitt. He's done a good job at TCU. Now, down the stretch, they didn't play as well, but as Joe alluded to, the Big 12 was the best conference in college basketball. There's no question about that, top to bottom. And you could go to the bottom half of the Big 12, and it's going to be better than the Mountain West. I'm going to take them. They were embarrassed in their last game, scoring 45 points. But again, who did they get held to 45 points by? Yeah, that juggernaut called Houston. And no shame there. Utah State plays good basketball, but they're not a Houston Cougar team. I like TCU. I'm going to go ahead and lay it with them. Key stat for Utah State over the last 2 seasons. when Vegas has installed them as an underdog, they've been just that, a dog. 1-9 against the spread. Go ahead, take the better conference, lay the small number. Little chalky for this opening round, as Kelly alluded to at the beginning of the show. But you know what? If I cash tickets, you can call me a chalk-eating weasel anytime.
Yeah, it kind of concerns me how chalky it has been. Joe, can I get you to make a case for the Aggies?
No. It's TCU or pass for me in this one here, Cal. There is just no way. And I'll give you the big reason why for me. And Marco kind of alluded to it here. I mean, TCU is a top 40 team in both offensive and defensive efficiency, coming from the best conference against the best competition. Utah State was great, but I love Jamie Dixon. I love the style of play here. Utah State defends the three better than anybody in the country. The problem is TCU doesn't shoot threes because they're not any good at them. So TCU's game is up-tempo, fast, physical, and bang some bodies down low here. And that's the problem for Utah, right? Is that Utah, you can defend the three all you want, but TCU is not going to try to beat you by chucking up threes. TCU is going to beat you because they're going to push you around. And we have seen what's happened with some more physical teams with Utah State this year, namely like San Diego State here. Utah State, of course, can win this game, right? But the problem was if they go 3 of 19 for 3 like they did against San Diego State here, where they lost by a trillion because they were more physical. I hate the matchup for Utah State in this one. It's why I would only look at TCU. But if they are hot from 3, TCU is in big trouble. The question is, do we trust them to score enough against a physical team in order to be able to outshoot TCU? Because TCU is going to be more physical without a doubt.
Yes, that is very true. And they're also going to turn the ball over more, without a doubt. And that is what I hope happens, because we are on Utah State money line. You can get the rest of my parlay. It's going to be up over at Superbook Sports, also on the Pickett app. If you are following me there, you can get it before I release it today on the Kelly and Murray Show. Now that I've gotten all of my plugs out of the way, we're going to get right into best bets, because I've got another show in 8 minutes. We've already discussed this one, and we're going to go right into it. I do not want to disrespect or discredit or take anything away from Dana Altman's squad. But while we're talking about conferences we're looking to bet on, conferences we're looking to fade, I am looking to fade the Pac-12. And I know Dana Altman has never lost in the first round, but I think South Carolina and Lamont Paris are about to hand them their first loss. I mentioned South Carolina, one of the best ATS teams in the country this year. Well, you know what? They were also one of the best teams on the road. That means these neutral site games are going to not be something new for this team. I just hope they can play a little semblance of defense, be able to shut down this Oregon team. This game's played in the low 60s. Expect South Carolina to get the win. As I mentioned, I looked at this one, bet it. Let me open up my account, have it at a pick'em from Sunday night. Currently 1.5. I like it up to 2. That is going to be my best bet for this opening round. I also mentioned I laid it with Texas Tech and Drake, as Ralph Michaels and I agree there. Marco D'Angelo, real quick, what do you have over at WagerTalk.com? And give me your best bet for round number 1.
Well, Kelly, it's been a tremendous run for me for the last 2 years in both college and NBA. We have gone 310 and 215 against the spread the last 2 years. That's resulted in a profit of over $22,000 for our clients. I've put together a VIP package, all access package. You can get all of my college basketball plays through the Final Four, my NBA plays through the NBA Finals, my NHL plays through the Stanley Cup, all Major League Baseball through June 23rd being the final day, latest that the NBA Finals could go. And, of course, it's Triple Crown season. You'll get all 3, Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont Stakes. Get everything for $649. It's the best deal of the year. Check that out at WagerTalk.com on my homepage. That's wt.buzz/MD. Well, we have bashed every team known to mankind in the Mountain West Conference. So it's time for my best bet. I'm taking a Mountain West Conference team for my best bet. And here is why. We are going to take Nevada against Dayton. Now,
let's go.
Nevada finished second in the Mountain West Conference. They finished the season on a 10-1 run. The only loss during that period was a 1-point loss to New Mexico, who, by the way, ended up winning the Mountain West Conference. This team was playing the best basketball at the end of the season in the Mountain West Conference. They finished the season by beating their arch rival UNLV, and that clinched the number 2 seed for them and gave them the season sweep over UNLV. First game of the Mountain West Conference tournament, I was all over Colorado State, looking to fade Nevada in that game because I thought they were going to be fat and sassy off of the win over UNLV, and I was right. Well, we got an easy win with Colorado State. Later on, I found out something that wasn't released. It started to trickle out less than 30 minutes before game time. I was already on Colorado State, but Nevada had several players that were sick, came down ill the previous 24 hours. So totally throw out that last play. It didn't hurt them. They're in the tournament. They had the rest. This is a team that is flying under the radar. Not impressed with Dayton this year in an Atlantic 10 conference that I don't think was that strong. Richmond was the top team all year. They lost in their conference tournament as well. I'm going to go ahead, take Nevada, lay it. Here's a stat for you. Nevada, non-conference. We're bashing the Mountain West Conference. Well, they're 10-3 against the spread outside of the conference this season. 13-4 against the spread the last 2 seasons in non-conference games between the threes, +3 to -3. Give me Nevada for my best bet.
Yes. Ooh. I love that one as well. I have entirely too many bets for the first round. 3 favorites, 3 underdogs for myself, but I'm in agreement with too many people. Joe, let's see if I'm in agreement with you as well.
Well, let me first say, since it is a very special March Madness edition of Bet On It here, Marco, I happen to have a couple of first half numbers for you here. So let me just throw it out there, Mario. Wouldn't be a Bet On It show if I didn't give you a little something here. But what stuck out to me was the first half unders since 2011. Those that are playing at 1 o'clock, the early games come March Madness Thursday and Friday. Unders 59, 36, and 3, 62% in the first half. Oh yeah, by the way, since the 2018 tournament, 24 and 18. When you start getting to the round of 64 through the rest, 102, 74, and 3, 58% to the first half under. So just keep that in mind. New sight lines, no familiarity with teams, and of course, the more games you win, the more pressure you get, which is why experience, I think, matters a lot when handicapping March Madness. And Cal, you will find no more experienced team here in the tournament with an entire rotation and even bench players of all upperclassmen than the Wisconsin Badgers, who are going into a game against the Dukes of James Madison, who everybody has already faded on their bracket. The whole world is fading this 5-12. It's James Madison. Okay, James Madison. So when it comes to comparing the Big Ten versus the Sun Belt, well, there is absolutely no comparison here, folks. Let me explain to you here that 22 of those 32 wins, I think that they have, 31 wins that James Madison has, came against quad 4 teams. And they lost twice to App State and couldn't even get the number 1 seed in their tournament and got upset by Arkansas State. So my point is, James Madison had a great year, but this is their first time at the big dance. This is not the first time for Wisconsin, who I think has played their best basketball down the stretch. Just ask Purdue and just ask Illinois what kind of easy game that was. I think Wisconsin has exactly what it takes in order to avoid the dreaded upset of a 5-12. I laid it with Wisconsin at 4.5. I think it's 5.5 right now, and yet nobody's betting Wisconsin. Everybody is betting James Madison. I will not be one of those people. Give me Wisconsin to show you why experience matters in the first round of the tournament.
It sure does, Joe. I think you lay it or don't play it. James Madison is the trendy dog, the Drake of last year, if you will. Wisconsin played the sixth toughest schedule this year. And I think you're absolutely correct. This is their chance to prove that they're not getting upset by a 12 seed. I did take the points in the Big Ten championship game. They had multiple opportunities, but unfortunately, Illinois pulled away late. I tailed one of my buddies on that one. I was not very happy. But you know what they did do, Joe? They got it done in the first half. They also got it done in the first half against Purdue. Maybe, just maybe, we should look at Wisconsin in the first half. Appreciate all of you guys hanging out today on the live show. As you know, I have to get out of here because John Murray is probably already calling me on Zoom. I hope you guys enjoyed the show as much as we did doing it. This special March Madness edition. I will not be doing a Sweet 16 because I will be in Mexico. The only place I can find winners is not here in America in college basketball. If you guys remember the nice run in Costa Rica, the one in St. Croix. So I figured, why not go to Mexico for March Madness? I will hopefully not get arrested for being completely obnoxious at a Mexican sports bar. From Marco, Joe, Ralph, and myself, good luck. And until next year, football season, I already am calling it. I already put it in the Slack channel. We're doing live shows. No more waiting for bet on it. Less graphics, less bullshit, more winners.